On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, a not even fully ramped up yet Cybertruck beats all of its competition to become the best-selling EV pickup truck of 2024. Plus, production of the new Model Y has reportedly begun in another one of Tesla's gigafactories. Tesla tops another major automaker in global sales, and more. What's happening, friends? Ryan McCaffrey joining you for episode 494 of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. This one's dropping on January 19th, 2025. To my left, on her couch, curled up in a boxer ball, is Daisy the Boxer. I, on the other hand, am fully wide awake, ready to talk all things Tesla with you for the next hour plus. And as always, there is plenty to talk about. I want to start with a quick correction from last week's podcast, or maybe a couple episodes now. A caller in the Ride the Lightning hotline from a couple episodes ago had responded to another caller's concern about the rear liftgate on the Model Y, saying that the responding caller said that the liftgate does remember the maximum height you set it at on a location-by-location basis, meaning that it would raise up to different maximum heights depending on where you were based on you GPS tagging that in the car. Now, a couple of folks have since called in to tell me that unfortunately, this is not the case. I'm not sure if I had misheard the caller mentioning that, if I just misinterpreted the call, or if the caller themselves got a little bit mixed up. But regardless, I did want to apologize and issue that correction. And I'll say to anybody from Tesla listening that if it is possible to add location-specific maximum rear liftgate heights on not just the Model Y, but also the S and X as well, that the car can remember so that it might only go up 3/4 of the way in your own garage, but outside of that, it'll go up all the way. Maybe at your office, it can go up 90% before it hits the parking garage ceiling. If that is possible, it would be an awesome feature for folks to have. Next up, as I get started this week, and you can file this little appetizer away under check back in on this in a few months. And by the way, thank you to listener Jerome Strack for sending this to me. Tesla says they're working on a much-needed improvement, in my opinion anyway, for the Cybertruck, and it's something that I've pointed out, but also plenty of others have pointed out. I am far from the first or far from the only one to have pointed this out based on some time behind the wheel with the Cybertruck. So I'm going to take you on a little walk here. It started with a very unserious exchange on X between a user by the name of the Cybertruck guy, who might be listening to this right now because he follows me on X. So, hi, Cybertruck guy, if you're listening. Well, he posted a picture of his Cybertruck's center screen display with his cameras pulled up on the screen in lousy weather, and all of his camera views, particularly the rear one that he had up on the the big window, was obscured by just dirt and rain and gunk. And he said with that picture, if I don't lick my cameras every drive, I have a persistent multiple cameras blocked or blinded error. To which Tesla's official Tesla AI account, the autopilot team, responded with, quote, sounds like we should add fun-flavored coding, just riffing on the licking thing. And then Tesla content creator Brandon, who I did a panel with at Tesla Takeover a couple years ago, I've met him, responded a little more seriously, saying in response to the Tesla AI team, quote, Cybertruck needs a rear camera washer. To which the Tesla AI account responded, clearly still in a lighthearted and fun mood, quote, give that camera a little bit of personal attention, won't you? And then an adult stepped into the room that everybody took seriously, longtime Tesla FSD blogger and real-life pilot Chuck Cook, who, by the way, I've met a number of times at events. Chuck is an absolutely delightful human being, and I really appreciate his work of posting and posting his experiences with FSD, because he doesn't sugarcoat things. If the software isn't doing something good, that he calls it out. He doesn't just say it's the greatest thing ever all the time. I like Chuck a lot. Well, Chuck put his serious face on and jumped into the conversation, interjecting with, quote, "While I agree cleaning cameras while supervised is definitely something we need to consider, having an official post from @TeslaAI about cleaning our own cameras is a bit concerning. You have a plan for this, right? Unsupervised FSD can't have customers wiping cameras," end quote. And then the Tesla AI account got serious, responding with, quote, "On a more serious note, a more comprehensive cleaning solution is being worked on," end quote. So again, I know that was a long walk, but thank you for taking it with me. And so I am not sure what Tesla's solution that's being worked on might be. I mean, ever since the first Cybertrucks were delivered, people have pointed out how the rear camera is just prone to getting gunked up because of its location. It's right on the back of the tailgate, and how it probably should have a camera washer on it, just like the front bumper camera on the Cybertruck does. Now, hopefully, the solution that the Tesla AI team is referencing there, that they're working on, is a camera washer, which, if it is, I hope that they will then offer it as an optional paid retrofit for the existing Cybertruck fleet, similar to how most of the old Model 3s can pay to get the powered rear trunk. So maybe, though, if it's not a full-blown camera washer solution, maybe they'll implement a different, like, hood enclosure on the top or bottom of the camera housing in order to help keep the water and dirt off of it. Which I say that because my new car has that. The new Model 3 has a revised camera housing that has kind of a different shaped enclosure with a hood on top that seems like it's not just a round thing. It's got little kind of bumps on it, which I'm guessing are to try and keep water from dripping down onto the camera lens. My point here is, I'm not sure what a non-hardware solution to this could even be, but then again, smarter people than me are working on this. But regardless, I am glad to hear that Tesla is working on something to address this on the Cybertruck. Next this week, following up on the reveal of the new Model Y, I wanted to make an extra prediction. If you wouldn't mind me adding a little addendum to my New Year's prediction shows, that I'll say, hopefully I remember to include this one at the end of the year. There's a very good chance that I will forget all about this in 11 and a half months from now. But here we go. Now that we've seen the new Model Y, I wanted to add a new prediction. And it's not cheating, as you'll hear in a second. So my extra prediction for 2025 is that the new Model Y Performance, which hasn't been unveiled yet, I predict that the new Model Y Performance will delete the middle section of the light bar that goes across the entire front of the car, effectively meaning that the Performance version won't have a light bar and instead have two really cool looking, I combined cool and looking into cooking there for some reason, we'll have two really cool looking daytime running light strips / turn signals, because that's also what they double as. And the reason that I bring this up is because the community has already showed me what it looks like, and it looks really good. People have photoshopped this. If you search for a render of what this can look like and take a look at it, like if try just searching for it. I guess I'm not going to waste time and type it in right now to see what comes up. But if you search for new Tesla Model Y no light bar, like, I don't know, try that. I'm sure you'll find it. If you take a look at it, if you can find it and you see what it can look like without the entire light bar across the middle, basically, of the front of the hood, it looks like Iron Man's mask, like Iron Man's helmet. And in my opinion, it looks really cool and a lot more aggressive. So in keeping with Tesla's spirit, their newfound spirit, of changing the front end of the car for the performance variant, as they've done on the new Model 3 Performance, this could be how they do it for the Model Y Performance. Just delete the light bar, and suddenly the car looks like Iron Man's mask and looks way cooler and more aggressive. And I genuinely think this could happen because Tesla does like to delete parts. So if they might be considering this. I think it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I'm going to go so far as to add it to my predictions. So mark me down for this one whenever the new Model Y Performance gets revealed, whether that's in 3 months, 6 months, but almost certainly sometime later this year. Now, speaking of the new Model Y, good news here. Multiple reports coming out of Germany suggest that production on the new Model Y has begun at Giga Berlin. I saw reports about this from employees at Giga Berlin, and it was covered on both Drive Tesla Canada and Teslarati, with the latter reporting that an employee said that the vehicle, the first one that they produced this past week, will stay within the factory and be signed by the 12,000 Tesla workers who are employed at Giga Berlin. And if that's true, and I have no reason to believe it isn't, it is Tesla tradition at this point, right? And I'm sure other car plants do this too. Everybody at the plant signs the milestone cars, which I think is really cool. Again, I'm not saying Tesla started this. I'm probably pretty sure they probably didn't. But I think that's a pretty neat thing. Now, the bigger question is, of course, when will the US plants follow suit? Because Giga Shanghai is building them. There were pictures posted online on Chinese social media this week that, of course, get copied over to Western social media of entire car carriers of the new Model Y out on the road in different colors. And so if Giga Shanghai is producing it, and now Giga Berlin has gotten started, when will Fremont and Texas begin production of the new Model Y? Whenever it is, I don't think it makes sense for Tesla to change over Texas first and for Fremont to just keep making the old Y, or vice versa, right? I feel like it's going to have to be both of them at once. Now, the good news is that I just can't see how it won't be very, very imminent here in the US as well. If Shanghai and Berlin have begun making the Juniper, to me, it increases the chances that the two US factories will follow suit very quickly. I mean, if the first deliveries aren't going to happen until March, that's the launch series that I told you about last week over in China. So we'll probably see the first deliveries in Berlin happen at the same time. And then for the time being, the US is still a wild card for now, but perhaps Fremont and Texas are just stockpiling enough of the old Model Y to sell off between the time that they announce the new Y here in America and the time that they can start delivering the new Y in this territory. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the US changeover will happen any day now, and they just won't necessarily announce it here because deliveries aren't starting until March. Like, they might just try to keep it quiet for another month and a half, but while they're keeping it quiet publicly, they're making the new Y in Fremont and in Texas on inside the factory. So we'll see what happens, but I think it's got to be really, really soon here. Also, speaking of launch series, by the way, I think it's fair to wonder, will the US and Europe get a launch series Model Y as well? And I'm inclined to say yes to that. If Tesla needs to ramp production back up on the new version, and inevitably they do to some degree even if it won't take months to ramp up like it does when they're opening a brand new factory, they can get people to pay more for that launch series for some amount of time while they're not as efficient as they normally are and they're not fully ramped up to where they want to be. So however many people they can get to pay more for a launch series, it makes sense for them to do so. I'm not saying I'm rooting for it, but business-wise, it makes sense for them to get more money from a launch series version while they can. Same thing happened with the Cybertruck's Foundation series, right? And it's an interesting purchasing proposition for buyers, I think. Maybe it's just as simple as I want it now for people where it's in their budget and they just don't think twice and they just go ahead and buy the launch series Model Y. But I think it still is an interesting proposition for some buyers because on the one hand, I think it's highly unlikely that the launch series will have higher resale value than a general production Juniper. Just as the Signature Series Model S and Signature Series Model X today don't have higher, and they never have really, except maybe in the very, very, very beginning, have higher resale value than any other comparably aged, comparable mileage S and X. And I am also of the opinion, as I've said here before, that I don't believe the Foundation Series Cybertrucks will carry any long-term additional value either. But on the other hand, as production ramps back up on the new Model Y, and it's eventually built in a 7-figure quantity per year again, 1.2 million Model Y per year, well, when that happens, your launch series Juniper will get rarer and rarer pretty quickly, right? In the grand scheme of things, compared to the ever-growing fleet of Model Y. Again, I don't think it'll really matter in the monetary sense. I just don't see anyone paying extra in the used market for a car with a couple of unique badges on it. But it will be, if you'll pardon the phrasing here, something of a literal badge of honor over time, right? Over time, as millions of the new Model Y hit the road over the next 2-3+ years, it will become this rare badge of honor to be one of those, to have one of those launch series cars, which really is all a Signature Series S or X is now. I mean, speaking personally, I do get a kick out of seeing a Signature S or X every single time because it doesn't happen too often. I see S's and X's every single day on the roads here, but it's pretty darn rare that I catch a Signature out in the wild. On the Cybertruck, there are roughly 30 to 35 times more Foundation Series Cybertrucks out there than there are Signature Series S's or X's out there. So it's possible that I may never personally quite muster up the same level of enthusiasm for seeing Foundation Series Cybertrucks on the road in the longer term, in another 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But on that note, I do think it'll be interesting to see how many launch series Ys there end up being. And that's also assuming that they're offered in Europe and in the United States as well. I think the launch series Juniper could end up being way more than the 30 to 35,000 or so Foundation Series Cybertrucks. We'll see. By the way, on the subject of the new Model Y, now that we've all had a week to sit with it, I wanted to get your updated opinion on the design, on everything we know, just on the overall new Model Y. So I made it the subject of this week's Patreon poll, which I remind you, anybody can stop by and vote in each week. You don't have to be supporting me on Patreon. I'd love it if you did make that choice to support my efforts with Ride the Lightning via Patreon support. But the Patreon poll is open to anyone each week. The new poll question typically goes up on Tuesday evenings, And again, just stop on by patreon.com/Tesla podcast and cast your vote. So this week's poll was titled New Model Y Hype Check. And I said, now that we know what the new Model Y looks like and what its features are, and that you've had a few days to take it in, what's your hype level for the second generation version of Tesla's best-selling vehicle? 41% of you voted, it's about what I expected. 22% said, I'm more excited than I was before the reveal. 19% of you said, I need to see it in person and or test drive it before I know where I stand on it. And 15% of you said, I'm less excited than I was before the reveal. So thank you to everybody that took the time to vote in this week's Patreon poll. Kind of an interesting smattering of responses there, but the plurality of you voted that it kind of fell roughly in line with what you were expecting. I think, I don't know, I would have been personally torn between that and being more excited. Even though, as I said last week, I'm not super into the design. I don't love the front end or the back end, personally. But what I do love, what the thing that would have me contemplating voting for being more excited is A, the new color, Glacier Blue, but B, that front bumper camera. I was not expecting that because the new Model 3 doesn't have it. It looked like the new 3 was going to have it, and then it turns out it didn't. But Juniper does. So I would have been torn in what to vote for in this poll. But thank you to everybody that took the time to vote. And let's move on. Next up this week, FSD version 13.3 will improve highway speed and vehicle follow distance. I saw this on Not a Tesla app, who I've certainly cited on this podcast before, and they write, many users of FSD have found that the highway stack tends to be extremely conservative. Even with FSD version 13, it maintains a speed far lower than the one selected. This has been an issue with FSD's speed profiles for a long time. While tapping the accelerator sometimes works, on V13, FSD will often slow right back down to the speed it was originally at, maintaining whatever speed the Ego prefers. Ego is referencing the car itself. That's the internal, that's how the FSD team refers to the car. Phil Dwan, a senior staff software engineer on Tesla's AI team, replied to Dan Birkland on X and mentioned that Tesla is aware of the feedback and that there will be an update to the highway stack to address the issue where the vehicle's speed yo-yos up and down. This update will, in particular, target the vehicle's speed on the highway and the following distance to a lead vehicle, both of which are now not adjustable by the user in FSD version 13. Well, looking at the cadence of recent FSD software releases, it would seem like version 13.3 would come around pretty darn soon. I wonder if they might be waiting on version 12.6 for the Hardware 3 fleet, which incorporates a number of the V13 features, to go wide, which it did, by the way, this past week before they really start pushing 13.3 out the door. For my part, I am very, very eager to finally dig into version 13 starting this weekend when I pick up my new Model 3 from the detailer. I can give my impressions of it on next week's podcast, although at this point, I don't know what they'd really be worth to a lot of you because many of you have been driving around with version 13 for some time. Although I suppose there are still plenty of you out there with Hardware 3 cars that might be interested in hearing my thoughts on it. So maybe I'll just drop those in at the end of next week's podcast so that if you don't care, you can just fast forward or press stop. By the way, I wonder what version unsupervised is going to be. Meaning, I'm talking about the production release version of it that gets pushed out to our cars. I'm not talking about the Tesla engineers that are already putting that through its paces, as I talked about on last week's podcast. Maybe that's version 14? I mean, it does seem like that particular milestone of going unsupervised probably worth a proper new version number rather than a point release. I think you'd agree. Speaking of software, the good folks at the Tesla App Updates iOS account on X have decompiled the latest Tesla iOS app version, which, if you're curious, is 4.41, and they've unearthed some interesting information. The highlights I want to pass along to you are, first, the very cool illustrated icon of the upcoming and aforementioned Tesla drive-in supercharger, the diner supercharger in Hollywood. I wonder when and how this cool icon will be seen on your app. I guess maybe when your car is there, maybe it replaces the graphic of your car at the top of the app screen, maybe. And also, the fact that there is a graphic for this in the latest version of the iOS app does seem to suggest that it's just about ready to open up for business down there. A line in the code, by the way, about the diner that ends with view menu and amenities. So the Tesla app updates folks say, quote, there will be a whole UI interface for when you are at the Tesla diner to order food and perform other services right from the Tesla app, end quote. Well, that is just going to be super cool. If that opens during the window where I still have free supercharging on my new Model 3, which for me is until March 14th, because I got my car on December 14th, I might take a trip down there to see this thing. And if I do, I will most certainly plan an LA listener meetup for anybody that wants to get together and hang out and check out the new latest and greatest supercharger that Tesla will have. And then there's one other thing in the new iOS app. It's one more line of code. Now, this one's not as fun as the Tesla Diner. So the code reads, optional has AC outlets not set. So this led the Tesla app updates folks to speculate, quote, also looks like the cheaper rear-wheel drive Cybertruck will not come standard with AC outlets, end quote. And I would have to say, I think that's a reasonable bit of speculation from those folks. And I'll just say, I think it would really be a bummer if you pay $61,000 for a 250-mile range Cybertruck and still don't get power outlets in the bed for that price and instead have to buy them as an option. I mean, I don't want to jump to conclusions on this, so I'll just stop my thoughts right there. But I guess I'll say, if you're thinking about buying the single motor Cybertruck, consider yourself pre-warned so that if this in fact does come to fruition when the rear-wheel drive Cybertruck goes up for sale, and then we know the answer to this situation for sure, whether or not it does have the outlets in the bed in there as standard equipment or not, you'll at least have prepared yourself mentally for this to possibly be an answer that you're not looking for. By the way, this week's Lightning Round bonus mini episode, which I do exclusively on Patreon for the very generous folks backing me at the $10 per month tier or higher, this week's Lightning Round was about my additional thoughts on the new Model Y 1 week later. The stuff that I've been marinating on, I made a little mini episode about it. You can check that out on Patreon at patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. A reminder, if you decide to sign up for the Patreon and support what I'm doing here at the podcast, at any tier, you will get ad-free episodes and you'll get early access to each week's episode. And if you jump up to that most popular tier, the $10 tier, you'll get the ad-free, you'll get the early access, and you'll get access to all past, present, and future lightning round mini episodes, again, that I do each week on Patreon. If you are purchasing a new Tesla, use someone's referral link to order the car so that you can get the discount, the cash discount. If it's mine, great. If it's somebody else's, great. But remember, there is a $500 discount if you order a Model 3 or a Model Y with a referral link, or a $1,000 discount if you order with a referral link off of the S, X, and Cybertruck. So mine is ts.la/Ryan73014. Just type that into a web browser and go. That link is also in the episode description, but make sure you're using somebody's referral link, I should say, when ordering a Tesla. And while I'm at it, I want to mention a couple quick friends of the podcast. First up, the Climate Exchange Raffle. Are you looking for a little Tesla-fueled excitement in your life to ward off these cold, dark days of January? Well, what if I told you that you could bring back your end-of-year holiday excitement by adding a new holiday to your calendar? And what if that holiday included winning the EV of your dreams, the Tesla of your dreams? All of this is possible if you enter Climate Exchange's 9th EV raffle. Their grand prize winner can choose from over 60 EVs on the market, including, of course, any Tesla configured however you want. Even better, they also pay all of the fees and taxes on the car, meaning you get your dream Tesla with zero out-of-pocket costs. Even better, Climate Exchange is giving away 2 additional cash prizes, $12,500 for their second place winner and $7,500 for their third place winner. Proceeds benefit a small nonprofit that's doing really important work for our planet to help states pass climate policies. So no matter what, your ticket is supporting an important cause. So buy your tickets today and mark a new holiday on your calendar, hopefully. Climate Exchange's EV raffle drawing on February 28th. Fewer than half of the tickets remain, so get yours before they sell out. Go to carbonraffle.org/RTL to get your tickets, or click the link in the episode description. That's carbonraffle.org/RTL. And then, of course, my friends at Accelerate Auto and their XCare extended warranty policy. I have got one on my car, my 2018, and when the time comes, I'll get one on my 2024 Model 3 Performance as well. But my 2018 has a 3-year, 40,000-mile extended warranty, which keeps my car covered. Anything that's going to come up, all I'll have to do is pay the $100 deductible, and I will also have 24/7 roadside assistance, along with rental reimbursement and trip interruption coverage. Those last 2 pieces Tesla doesn't offer in their fixed 2-year, 25,000-mile extended warranty option. So whether you want to mirror what I did, 3 years, 40,000 miles, or go all the way up to an extra 10 years and 125,000 miles, or somewhere in between, XCare is flexible and it works for however you want it to work, whatever's going to work best for you and your family. So check them out, accelerateauto.com/xcare. That's xcelerateauto.com/XCARE. The link is in the description as well. And don't forget to use the discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your policy purchase. I've got plenty more to talk about, so let's continue, shall we? I know I mentioned the Cybertruck a few minutes ago, but let's talk about it some more, shall we? The headline story this week, and this very much includes the Foundation Series Cybertrucks that I was bringing up earlier. Tesla's stainless steel tank was the best-selling EV pickup truck in 2024. I saw this story on Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, according to data from Kelley Blue Book, the Cybertruck accumulated 38,965 sales in 2024. That was enough to outpace its closest competitors in the electric truck market, the F-150 Lightning, by more than 5,000 units. In a distant third was the GMC Hummer EV. However, their figure at just under 14,000, 13,993, also includes the SUV variant of it. Meanwhile, the Rivian R1T and Chevy Silverado EV rounded out the top 5 with 11,000 and change and 7,400 plus units sold respectively. Also, the Cybertruck sales of 38,965 units were enough to have it place 5th overall in the EV rankings, trailing the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which had 44,400 units, and the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which clocked in at 51,745 units. Well, a few things jumped out at me here. First, I'm actually surprised that the Cybertruck number wasn't higher, because it seemed like there were around 35,000 Foundation Series trucks or so, and I'm basing that on the VINs that people would post on the Cybertruck forums at the time that Foundation Series ended and general production began back in early October. And presumably, Tesla was building and also selling around 2,000 Cybertrucks per week, which would have meant that they did around 25,000, give or take, in Q4 alone. But either that wasn't the case, or, I think more likely, the Foundation Series number was actually a decent bit lower than 35,000. VINs aren't always necessarily sequential, is what I'm needing to admit to myself here. But still, I'm surprised that the overall Cybertruck number wasn't higher. I mean, I'm sticking to my prediction that a price cut is going to happen much sooner rather than later on the Cybertruck. I mean, the introduction of the aforementioned single motor Cybertruck for $61,000 before the tax credit, which I predicted would happen this quarter, will certainly help, at least for a little while the tax credit's still around, and hopefully it's going to be around for a while, because I'm pretty sure it's an act of Congress and would need to be undone by an act of Congress. Still, the other way to look at this is that, as I mentioned at the very, very top of the show, the Cybertruck still beat all of its competition in its class with, metaphorically speaking, one hand tied behind its back, meaning it has not finished ramping up in production by any stretch as of yet. Now, the second thing that jumped out at me, as you all know, I live in a very EV-friendly place. There are tons of Teslas here, but also plenty of other makes and models of EVs too. And based on my local, personal, purely anecdotal evidence, I absolutely would not have guessed in 100 years that the Hummer EV outsold the Rivian R1T. I say that because, again, my own personal experience, which I recognize is not reflective of the entire market, I see lots of Rivians around here, both the R1T, the truck, and the SUV, and I see very, very few Hummer EVs. Like, I could probably count them on two hands. They have been few and far between in my silly little useless anecdotal experience. But I guess the Hummer EVs must be more popular somewhere other than the San Francisco Bay Area. And then the third thing that jumped out at me is this really leads me to wonder what Cybertruck production and thus sales are going to be for the Cybertruck in 2025. In fairness, Tesla told us up front as Cybertruck production began that the production ramp would be longer on this vehicle, more like 18 months instead of the 12 that it typically is for, say, the 3 and the Y, which means that the Cybertruck should hit full speed ahead on production around the middle of the year. I think the question is full speed still 5,000 trucks per week, meaning 250,000 trucks per year? Because that's the number that Elon has given over and over, starting with me asking him that question back at the 2020 shareholders meeting / Battery Day combo event, which was in September that year. And Elon has repeated that 250,000 run rate number a year many times since then. I mean, it's a safe bet that the Cybertruck will be the best-selling EV pickup truck again this year, and by a wider margin than it was in 2024. But the 2024 number is, at least to me, a good bit lower than I had personally expected. Again, the single-motor version for less money will help, and we'll see if and when, I mean, it's not if, it's when, but we'll see when a price cut happens, whether it's sooner or later, along with the possible introduction of the Cybertruck in global markets outside of North America, which I've talked about on recent podcasts as well. Next, let's stay on the topic of the Cybertruck and talk about some good that the vehicle is doing out there in the world. Tesla and SpaceX have pulled a bunch of Cybertrucks off of the production line in Texas and sent them to roam the wildfire-affected areas of Los Angeles with Starlinks mounted to the roofs of the trucks in order to provide internet for anyone there who needs it, who no longer has access to it, because cell towers have been burned, internet infrastructure has been destroyed. I saw so many posts about this online, but I thought that Drive Tesla Canada had a nice write-up. They said, quote, Tesla has stepped up to play a crucial role in aiding communities affected by the devastating Los Angeles wildfires. The company announced a comprehensive relief effort that leverages Tesla and SpaceX technology and additional resources to support both first responders and residents impacted by the fires. Perhaps the most unique way Tesla is helping with relief efforts is by using Cybertrucks equipped with SpaceX Starlink satellite internet terminals, which have been deployed to provide power, connectivity, and essential supplies in hard-hit areas. These vehicles, paired with Starlink, act as mobile hubs, delivering both power and free Wi-Fi to residents cut off from electricity and communication networks. Positioned across the greater LA and Malibu regions, the Cybertrucks have also created a grid of connectivity for those in need. In addition to providing internet access, the trucks are stocked with water, snacks, and other essentials. The vehicles are also staffed with security personnel to deter looting. In addition, Tesla also donated multiple Cybertrucks to be utilized as battery banks for Altadena Mountain Rescue, which had been without power. Quote, "This will greatly help the team to power radios, computers, and lights as we work into the dark," the organization said on Instagram. Tesla's efforts go beyond connectivity, though. The company has deployed 2 Megapack chargers to locations like Thousand Oaks and Altadena, relieving energy demands caused by widespread power outages. These units provide essential power to evacuation centers and first responders, ensuring operations can continue despite grid disruptions. In Altadena, 1 Megapack charger supports the local sheriff's department, powering critical communications and emergency equipment. Additionally, Tesla has mobilized portable Powerwall units in collaboration with non-profit organizations. These units offer backup power for household essentials, such as refrigerators and medical devices, ensuring families can maintain basic functionality during prolonged outages. Tesla is also prioritizing its workforce impacted by the wildfires. The company is providing housing accommodations, transportation, and meals for employees whose homes have been damaged or destroyed. If any of you have ordered a Cybertruck recently and were expecting delivery but have seen your delivery date pushed back, this is why. In fact, I say that with confidence because Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted, quote, "Apologies to those expecting Cybertruck deliveries in California over the next few days. We need to use those trucks as mobile base stations to provide power to Starlink internet terminals in areas of LA without connectivity. A new truck will be delivered end of week," end quote. And hopefully any of you affected by this have received that truck by now. And look, I know that some people, maybe not a lot of people listening to this podcast who clearly like Tesla and have seen how the company has responded to other natural disasters, like how Tesla offers free supercharging to hurricane-affected areas, to the vehicles in those areas, or they have in the past unlocked the maximum battery pack of cars in the fleet that have software-locked packs in other disaster scenarios. But some people out there might decry this as a marketing stunt for the Cybertruck and for Starlink. Now, is it possible that that's what this is? Well, sure, it's possible. But even if that is something that Elon and Tesla and SpaceX wanted out of this, and for the record, I honestly don't think so. I think they are doing the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. The fact of the matter is that it's absolutely really helpful to people and organizations in need. And as I just mentioned, Tesla has a history. I don't think it's my opinion to say that Tesla has a history of trying to do the right thing. I just documented, and you, again, if you've been following Tesla, if listening to this podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about that stuff in the past. They have unlocked supercharging access for free to devastated areas, weather scenarios. They have unlocked software-locked battery packs on a temporary basis. They've done this stuff. It's documented. So Tesla has a history of trying to do the right thing, which, as I've said many times before, I think they do, in fact, the right thing more often than not. So I applaud both companies here because improving humanity has always been at the core of both Tesla's and SpaceX's missions, right? Normally, their company goals are super big picture, especially SpaceX, but Tesla too. But this little example, it's not little, but on the grand scheme of things, smaller scale example, is a good example of them. Basically, it's like the epitome of that saying, think globally, act locally. Well, that's exactly what Tesla and SpaceX are doing here. And it's nice to see Tesla do their best as well to help out not only the greater Los Angeles community, where they have many employees, including Franz and the design team are down there. But it's also worth pointing out, I should note too, I don't want to make this sound like that I'm just slathering praise on Tesla and SpaceX. Other companies have absolutely contributed to relief efforts as well. So I don't want this to come off or sound like, oh, the Tesla's the only company doing any good down there. No, I'm not trying to say that. But being that I'm on a Tesla podcast, I wanted to point out Tesla's efforts to be good citizens here, and I applaud it. All right, I've got still 2 more stories to tell you about this week. The first of those is this. Tesla has officially overtaken Audi in global sales for the first time, marking a significant shift in the luxury automotive market. Saw this one on Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, in 2024, Tesla delivered 1.79 million vehicles worldwide, a slight 1.1% drop compared to the previous year. During the same time, Audi delivered 1.67 million vehicles globally, a 12% decline for the Volkswagen-owned brand. What makes Tesla's achievement even more noteworthy is its streamlined product lineup. Tesla operates with just 4 globally available models, the S3, X, and Y, alongside the recently launched Cybertruck, which is limited for now to the US, Canada, and Mexico. By contrast, Audi offers a vast array of vehicles, including electric, hybrid, and traditional internal combustion models. Audi's sales decline in 2024 is linked to multiple factors, including weakening demand for luxury vehicles in China, increased competition from local automakers, and reduced EV subsidies in Europe. While Audi's electric vehicle sales fell 8%, its overall decline of 12% points to broader challenges, such as waning interest in combustion models and lukewarm reception to its EV lineup. The drop in demand has led Audi to scale back production, even closing its Brussels facility that manufactured the electric Q8 e-tron. Well, thank you to Drive Tesla Canada for that excellent summary. You know, when you pull back to the 10,000-foot view, as you know I like to do, this looks good, right? Tesla started at 0 cars less than 2 decades ago, less than 20 years ago, and now they've surpassed a major German automaker. And they've done it by making nothing but pure battery electric vehicles in a world and in a market that I think we'd all probably agree has been fairly slow to accept that. I think it's rather impressive, if you ask me. Now, that said, I think it's fair to point out that Tesla has much grander ambitions than Audi does from a volume perspective. Not that Audi isn't trying to sell as many cars as they can, but Tesla is moving down market as quickly as they can in order to get more EVs into more people's driveways. I mean, sure, the Model 3 and the Model Y compare pretty fairly to the Audi A3 and the Q3, respectively, but Audi, their whole brand is they're staying in that luxury market. Tesla's in that market now, but they're also trying to enter other markets, which, like, for instance, the pickup truck market. Audi doesn't have one of those. And they're on the cusp of entering that next bigger market with the Model 2.5 cars and later the Cybercab, which I guess now that I think about it, the Cybercab will be kind of in a segment of its own, really. I guess my point is that pretty soon, Audi won't even be an apples-to-apples comparison anymore, but it is today, to be clear, and everybody at Tesla should be incredibly proud of this move up the global automaker leaderboard. It's pretty cool stuff. I will say, by the way, as a final point to this, a friend of mine who I caught up with fairly recently, he works at Audi on the corporate level, and they do have some pretty cool stuff coming, and yes, I do mean EVs when I say that. But if anybody comes back to this podcast in this episode in like 5 years from now, which I guess would be the turn of the next decade, wow, that's weird to think about, I wonder if talking about Tesla passing Audi in global sales will seem quaint by comparison to whatever Tesla's up to in 2030. Regardless, though, whatever happens, I'll be along for the ride, and I hope you will be too. Finally this week, Tesla's plan, I hate to end on bad news, but I didn't know where else to throw this story in, so I guess it's getting thrown in at the end. Tesla's plan to establish a dedicated electric vehicle semi-truck charging corridor has hit another major roadblock. I saw this, I think this was on Drive Tesla Canada as well. They write, the U.S. Department of Transportation announced $636 million in funding for the electric vehicle charging infrastructure, distributing awards to 49 applicants. However, for the second time, Tesla's $100 million funding request was not among the approved projects. The rejected project, dubbed Transport Electrification Supporting Semis Operating in Arizona, California, and Texas, or Tesseract, as an awesome acronym there, aimed to create a 9-station charging corridor spanning 1,800 miles from Fremont, California to Laredo, Texas. Each station was designed to include 8 750-kilowatt chargers tailored for the Tesla Semi and 4 additional chargers accessible to other EV trucks, a federal funding requirement. Tesla partnered with the South Coast Air Quality Management District in California, contributing $24 million of its own funds toward the effort. Tesla's initial funding request under the Charging and Fueling Infrastructure Program, the CFI program, was submitted in 2023. The CFI program part of the bipartisan infrastructure law signed in 2021, has allocated $2.5 billion to develop EV charging networks nationwide. The first round of funding in 2024 distributed $623 million across 47 projects, excluding Tesla. And again, Tesla was left out of the second round announced last week, which awarded $636 million. Despite the snubs, Tesla remains committed to advancing the Tesseract project. Rohan Patel, Tesla's former policy vice president, expressed optimism in 2024, noting that some proposed sites were viable, quote, even without funding. Well, this is obviously a bummer, and I'm going to put my Tesla fanboy hat on here for a second and say that I have to wonder who else has a viable battery electric semi-truck program that would be a legitimately better way to allocate these financial resources than what Tesla's proposal, the Tesseract proposal, was. Still, the big picture thing for me here is we are still in the absolute infancy of semi-truck electrification. It's really, to me, it's the equivalent, we are in the equivalent of the original Tesla Roadster days in the semi-truck world, like 2008 to 2011. We've got a long way to go to electrify semi-trucks. So I think this budgetary defeat, if you will, shouldn't really be fretted over. I'm not worrying too much about it. It's unfortunate, but the road ahead is long, and Tesla is really well positioned with the Tesla Semi. All right, that is everything I've got for you in another super busy week of Tesla news. But stick with me, I've got a few of your excellent Ride the Lightning hotline phone calls queued up and ready to go right after this.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Time for your phone calls. Here in the Ride the Lightning hotline, this is your chance to call in and be part of the podcast. If you have a Tesla question, comment, or discussion topic, I'd love to hear it. I invite you to call in. There are two easy ways to do that. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your question. I kindly ask that you keep it to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many people each week as possible. Or you can take that same 90-second or less question and call in on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number. You can dial at any time, and it's 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. First up this week is Andrew from Ottawa, giving his first impressions on the new Model Y.
Hey Ryan, Andrew from Ottawa calling again. Calling about the Juniper refresh Model Y first impressions. Now, visually, it actually does look quite good to me. There are a few things that'll be getting used to, but otherwise, honestly, pretty good. So my main issue here is that, as others have pointed out online at least, it seems to be following a similar trend on the headlights to the Cybertruck, which has issues with snow compaction. And so I'm wondering if they've kind of figured out something to not completely reduce your headlights in a blizzard, or whether that is something that is still to be worked on. Now, in terms of the rear headlights, I was also wondering about that, because by having that diffusion, that may also be blocked by the snow. So when I would drive an hour at highway speeds in blizzard, for example, well, less than highway speeds, the aerodynamics of the Model 3, at least, would make it so the whole back of the car is just covered in snow. So I'm not sure on the specific aerodynamics of the Model Y, but I worried that the diffusion light might not actually penetrate that slightly thicker snow in a snowy environment. So curious about that. Also, a little saddened to hear about not hear anything about 48-volt architecture, steer-by-wire, or power share, which I think would just be so incredible on a Model Y. So I guess maybe more details will be released over time, but otherwise, a little bit underwhelmed by the Juniper, honestly. It still seems like an excellent car, but I guess it doesn't have everything that I was quite hoping to see in a refresh. Anyway, take care. Have a great day.
Hey, Andrew, thank you for your call. To address your last point first, I completely see where you're coming from. As you know, I predicted power share in the new Model Y as a great bit of functionality that would benefit customers and set the new Model Y apart from the growing competition. So it's a shame that it seems to be not included here. And by the way, I hear you on the 48-volt low voltage, 800-volt high voltage, and the steer-by-wire. It would seem to me that Tesla played this pretty conservatively, which I can't necessarily blame them for, with this car being their big moneymaker. But at the same time, it is a bit disappointing. You're allowed to still like the new Model Y and maybe even want to buy it and still be disappointed by the final product. As for the snow concerns that you shared, this actually came up on our Patreon Zoom Hangout, our monthly call, last weekend, and from what I can see from the pictures, and I admit I'm just going off of photos right now, it doesn't look like there's any sort of shelf for the snow to build up on and impede the headlights like there is on the Cybertruck, so hopefully it won't be an issue. The diffused light bar on the rear, that remains to be seen, how that one plays out in the snow. I think you raise a valid concern there, honestly. Hopefully, these are going to deliver soon enough, coming up in March, that there will still be snowy conditions around by the time the first folks take delivery of them around the world, so that we don't have to wait another 6 months or so to get the answers to these key cold weather questions. Thanks again, Andrew. Next up is Lawton from Chicago, also commenting on the Juniper.
Hi, Ryan. It's Lawton from Chicago. Wanted to comment on the refreshed Juniper Model Y. I agree that it's a solid update which continues to provide an amazing value. The update's styling and improved interior shall maintain the status of the Model Y as the best-selling vehicle across the world. The bumper cam is the most welcome addition for parking, especially after the previous removal of the ultrasonic sensors. To make the Model Y an even more compelling upgrade for current owners, such as my 2022 Model Y, I'm eager to hear more details of the underhood upgrades. Will it adopt the 48-volt architecture? Will fast supercharging speeds be unlocked, taking advantage of the new V4 supercharger cabinets? Will the Juniper be the first vehicle after the Cybertruck to have power share, bringing vehicle to grid to millions? To avoid the Osborne effect, I can understand that Tesla will want to keep these potential updates under wraps until they sell the original Model Y. If they are able to deliver most of these upgrades, if grading by baseball hits, Juniper will go for me from being a solid double to a home run. Without most of these upgrades, I'd probably wait for the AI5 version to come out in 2026 before upgrading. Let's hope Tesla swings for the fences and lays the foundation for the Juniper Model Y to take sustainable transport and energy to the next level. As always, thanks for your enthusiasm and commitment to the Tesla community. Look forward to your thoughts.
Lawton, it's been a while since you called in, good sir. Great to hear from you. I admit I had not considered the idea that Tesla is sandbagging some big under-the-hood features, the new Model Y, and I have to say, I don't think you're crazy. And I know Andrew from Ottawa really wants to believe you right now, really wants to think you're onto something, and you might be. It is not out of the realm of possibility. I don't personally think that I can go so far as to say that I'm optimistic that Tesla's going to surprise us with 48 volt and 800 volt high voltage pack and faster supercharging speeds and power share, but we are dealing with a company in Tesla who's really good at keeping things close to the chest. So fingers crossed that you're right, pardon me, and one way or the other we should find out in 2 months or less. The third and final caller that I have time for this week is Brian from Prescott, Arizona, talking about free lifetime supercharging on those remaining Foundation Series Cybertrucks. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, Ryan, it's Brian Redmond from Prescott, Arizona. And just calling. I posted on Twitter tonight something about the Cybertruck, and I was hoping maybe you saw it on X, Twitter X, whatever we're calling it now. And just my feedback on the whole Foundation Series free supercharging for life situation. I'm a Cybertruck owner, reservation holder, day one reservation holder, and purchased my Cybertruck as soon as I could and paid full price. So a little disheartened when I saw the free supercharging for life, realizing that if I just waited 5 months, I could have paid the same price, got the same truck, and then had full free lifetime supercharging as well. So that doesn't sit real well, but I understand how these things go, and they need to do what they need to do to pull the levers to increase sales. But I did tweet out to Elon, just, telling him that, was not the greatest feeling to see that happen, and had an idea that why don't they offer those of us that did put our reservations in and did buy the truck right away, why don't they give us the option to purchase free lifetime supercharging for a cost like $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, whatever it might be? I'd be interested in that, and I would take advantage of that. So just wanted to throw it out there. Thought I'd call in, see if you might play it on the show too, maybe get it to the right ears or to somebody that might hear it at Tesla that might think it's a good idea. So that's my 2 cents. Hope you're well. Thanks again for all you do. Bye.
Brian, thank you very much for your call, and I completely understand your feelings on this. As you pointed out in different words, you were effectively punished for being an early adopter. I think that's a reasonable way to interpretation of that, right? Like, when it should be the opposite. Tesla should be finding small ways to reward you for being an early adopter. And to be honest with you, I think your suggestion on behalf of your fellow Foundation Series Cybertruck owners is a really fair and reasonable one. Give all of the other Foundation Series Cybertruck owners the option to buy free lifetime supercharging. I mean, again, we've learned there are only 30-something thousand Foundation Series Cybertrucks out there total. No more will be built. And of those, not a huge number are going to pay extra for this. It's just how it is. But it would be a nice gesture from Tesla to not make it feel like you were punished for giving Tesla your money at a time when the Cybertruck wasn't even profitable yet, and thus your purchase theoretically made more of a difference to them at the time, right? So for whatever it might be worth, I am very happy to co-sign your suggestion/idea here. Thank you, Brian. Thank you to everybody that kindly took the time to call in. If anybody else out there has a good Tesla pro tip of the week, please, I'm going to do that next. Not the pro tip, just a regular call. I mean, or a pro tip as well. But if you've got a phone call, if you've got a question, comment, or a pro tip, please do call in with it. I would love to hear from you. I gave you the 2 call-in methods at the top of this segment. I'm not quite done yet. It's time for the Soul of Adventure portion of the podcast. First up, the Immaculate Reflections update, as I mentioned earlier. After the windshield film issue, that's been resolved. I just wasn't able to get over there during the week. So I am picking up the car this weekend, and thankfully, knock on wood, the weather forecast is excellent as well. No rain. So hopefully I am going to get to see my paint-corrected, fully detailed, ultra-red Model 3 performance in the California sun for the very first time. I'm so excited to get this thing back and to get it, finally, really get out and get used to it, get it on the road, have some fun with it. I haven't even launched it yet. Also, on a similar note, my license plates came in from the DMV already, but can I tell you a secret? I'm not going to put them on yet. And the reasons are twofold. One, my temporary paper tags that every new car in California gets, they're good through mid-March. It says right on there, valid until, it's like they're good for 3 months total. So they're good until mid-March. So I am going to enjoy the new car look to its fullest extent for as long as I can. But then the second reason that I'm not going to put these plates on is because as soon as those plates, and I'm not even joking, as soon as those plates arrived in the mail, I brought them up from the mailbox, I took them out and looked at them, and I went on the California DMV website and I ordered new custom plates. Because, the reason, if you're wondering, well, why'd you wait? You have to have a plate number, a proper license plate issued to you in order to order a custom plate. You have to put in what plate are you replacing? And you type in the plate number. So I did that at the nearest possible moment. So it says it could take up to 4 months for the custom plate to arrive. We'll see. Hopefully the custom plates arrive before my paper tags expire in mid-March, and that meaning I would never have to put on the regular standard issue license plates. We'll see what happens. A quick entertainment recommendation for the week here before I get to your pro tip of the week. I want to recommend Severance on Apple TV Plus. Season 2 has begun. I've watched the first episode. That's all that's out as of this recording. And I rewatched season 1 over the last couple weeks to really get properly prepped for season 2, because season 1 blew me away, and rewatching it after I hadn't watched it for 2 or almost 3 years, man, season 1 was awesome still, even on a rewatch. And the first episode of season 2, really, really fascinating and compelling as well. It's probably not a kid's show. I'm just going to say use your parental discretion on that. But I'm very much looking forward to the rest of season 2 of Severance. And if you haven't watched it and you have Apple TV Plus, start at season 1, and I am confident that you will like it. It's a really unique and interesting show. All right, time for that pro tip of the week. It comes from Morgan in Ireland.
Hi Ryan, Morgan here from County Kildare in Ireland. Thought I'd send you a pro tip. It's very cold here at the moment in Ireland, below freezing, and I frequently find that the door handle of my Model 3 is frozen, and I have to either pour warm water on it to get it open, or worse than that, give it a bang with my fist and you hear the crack of the ice, which is not very nice to do. I discovered recently on the app, under customized controls, there's a function called Unlatch Door. And by pressing this, the driver's door opens, which I found extremely useful. Anyway, hope that helps some of your listeners in colder climates. Thanks, Morgan.
This is a fantastic cold weather tip, Morgan. Thank you so much for calling in with this one. And again, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, if anybody else out there has a good pro tip of the week that you'd like to share with me and your fellow Tesla owners and enthusiasts, please send it in via the same 2 methods you can use to send in a regular Ride the Lightning hotline phone call. Before I go, I want to say hello and thank you to the Patreon backers coming up at the end. But first, some friends of the podcast that can perhaps be useful to you at some point. AbstractOcean.com has got a million great aftermarket Tesla accessories. Every now and again, I'll just go on their website while I'm doing this little plug and see what they got. Well, right now, let's see, bestsellers, premium Model 3 mud flaps. I do see those on a lot of Model 3s, so they're $55 for a set. They're actually on sale, $5 off right now. The super hydrophobic camera cover for the 3 and the Y. I know I've mentioned that one before. I guess it must be always at the top of their bestseller list. Of course, the ultra premium tempered glass screen protectors for all the Teslas. The one for the 3 and the Y is $50, etc., etc. Just go take a look. AbstractOcean.com. Click on whichever Tesla you have, and it will show you all of the accessories available for your car. Pile everything you like into your online shopping cart, and when you get to checkout, use the coupon code RTLPodcast to get a 15% discount on your first order. That's RTL Podcast, all one word, no spaces, at abstractocean.com. The snap plate, that is the front license plate mounting bracket that I recommend rather than the one that Tesla includes with your car. They have snap plate for everything, S3, XY, and now Cybertruck as well. It is the front license plate bracket that snaps on and off in seconds, that's paint safe, grill safe, radiator safe, autopilot safe. It's not going to get in the way of anything. It's a nice, clean, minimalist design, which I'm a big fan of. And you can make sure that it's on there and you've got your front plate on to make those fix-it tickets go away. So check them out at everyamp.com/RTL. And don't forget the coupon code RTL as well for a discount. Again, the links to all this stuff is always in the episode description if you need it. Next, Immaculate Reflections. They've been hard at work on my car, despite a little hiccup with the windshield PPF, which I'm anxious to see in person. I've never seen windshield PPF. Jeff, the owner and proprietor and master detailer there, texted me and he was like, hey, do you want to do windshield PPF? I've got some stuff that I've really been liking. And I said, well, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. I mean, it's a thing where maybe I'll come to regret it if I end up cracking the windshield, because it's windshield PPF is just, it's for lighter stuff. It's not going to actually prevent the windshield from getting cracked or broken. But any of those little chips, those like little rocks, it'll deflect those to keep the clarity on your windshield higher for longer. So we'll see. If I end up cracking my glass in the next 6 months, which is what happened with my first Model 3, I cracked the windshield driving up Interstate 10 from Tucson back to Phoenix in Arizona when I was visiting a friend of mine. Within 6 months, I had a broken windshield. And so if that happens again, well, maybe then I'm not going to spend the money on windshield PPF, but it's an experiment. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, Immaculate Reflections is an awesome detailer located in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. So if you're here or you're going to be here with a car that you love, I do urge you to contact them. irdetailing.com is the website. You can also take a look on their Instagram page, which is the Instagram handle is immaculate_reflections. Also on Yelp at yelp.com/immaculate reflections. When you reach out to Jeff through the website, mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and any detail service that you book with him, you'll get the Ride the Lightning listener discount, which I'm grateful to Jeff for continuing to offer to my audience. The Patreon, that is the primary way you can choose to support the podcast. It's not a requirement. This podcast has always been and will always be free. But if you've been listening for a while, you enjoy the podcast, you get a lot out of it, I would be so humbled and grateful if you would consider supporting what I'm doing here. The support tiers start at just $5 a month. $5 a month, and you will be supporting me. And in return, as a thank you, you'll get ad-free episodes every week, and you'll get early access to each week's episode. So all of the Patreon information, all the different support tiers, including that most popular tier, which is the $10 per month tier that gets you the Lightning Round mini episodes, both every new one and also the entire archive of them. You can find out all the information at patreon.com/Tesla podcast. If you are not already following this podcast on your preferred podcast platform or podcast feed, if you will, I highly recommend you do that, because if you do, it's totally free to do it. If you do, you'll get a notification every time there's a new episode, meaning you don't have to remember, wait, am I caught up on Ride the Lightning? Has there been a new one? Has that come out yet? Your phone or device will just notify you when a new episode drops, which is every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. But you can follow this podcast on pretty much all the big podcast services, whether it's Apple Podcasts, it's, YouTube Podcasts is the other big one, Spotify, of course, as well. So check it out. Just search up Ride the Lightning Tesla Podcast, and you should find me no problem. Just click the follow button. And finally, you can find me on X and or on Instagram. I have the same username on both, and that username is DMC_Ryan. You can also email me anytime about Tesla-related stuff. My email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. As promised, I wanted to say a hello and thank you to the top-tier Patreon backers, the most generous folks out there. I'm going to start with the most generous tier, the Roadster in Space tier, because there is a brand new addition to the Roadster in Space tier. Very big hello and thank you to Tony Figueroa. Tony, thank you so much for joining the Roadster in Space tier. Looking forward to having you on the monthly Zoom Hangouts if you want to join us, as well as a one-on-one chat with just me and you if you elect to use that each month as well. Big thanks to the rest of the Roadster in Space tier crew. They are Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, GetAmber.com, Doug Carey, Rob, and Michael Gallo. Next, the Maximum Plaid crew. Big thanks goes out to this group. They are Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Adam Christie, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Clayton Goodfellow, Michael Mizrahi, Kenneth Corbett, and Brian Bertoglio. And finally, the grandfathered-in Plaid level supporters. Thank you for your ongoing continued support to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk, in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. And with that, we've reached the end of the palindromatic episode 494. I think I even had it in my notes that it's a palindrome. I always like to say that at the beginning, every 11 episodes. It's a palindrome. It's the episode number reads the same forwards or backwards. Just a fun, silly little thing. We'll do another one in, I guess it'll be for 505. Yeah, so 11 more will be the next one. We'll have had episode 500 by then. Hopefully something fun will have happened for episode 500, something special. We'll see. But for now, I want to say thank you all so much for your time, for your attention, for your enthusiasm, and for sharing that with me. That's why I do this. That's why you listen to it, presumably, is to just, you've got that same Tesla enthusiasm I do. You love these cars. You love what this company's up to. And we'll do it again next week, shall we? Never a dull moment. Next week will be a regular show, and then the week after. So we got 2 episodes until the Q4 earnings call. So that'll be a big one. But stay tuned for next week, because I'm sure something fun will happen for next week's podcast as well. Something fun always seems to happen in the world of Tesla. All right. Happy electric motoring, my friends, and I'll see you back here next week.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.